Hi, this is Cora Stack here. I'm on your side. I want to announce a piece of work that has taken me several months, and it has been a huge challenge to achieve it. And I'm calling it a major new constitutional theory, the constitutional blind spot and the weakening of constitutional democracy. Now, I'm a mathematician, and for me to have achieved this is incredible. So I'd like to be an inspiration, if I could, to people who perhaps, up to a certain age or whatever, would go one path and then would find that life would take them in a new direction. And this has been an incredible challenge, an intellectual a challenge, a learning journey. It's also being a courageous and a brave journey, in my opinion. But the intellectual challenge has been phenomenal, particularly in the light of huge adversity. And I talk a lot about abuse and power dynamics and the type of abuse of women, in particular, in a lot of my research, and a lot of the types of abuse that occurs right across the board in families, in the workplaces, in life, right across the board, in institutions and so on. So I look at the power dynamics, and there's a huge similarity about that. And I believe women are treated as badly now as they were in the Middle Ages. I don't see much difference. So I think we need to do something. So let's look at this and see, will this help change change something for the better in this situation. So my new work is called I Am Absolutely Shocked at the Way Women Are Treated, and I've written extensively about it. I've researched it, and it's shocking the way the powers that be still treat women. And if anybody thinks we're not still second-class citizens, and particularly if you're a successful person, or if you're seen to be a star, you won't be knocked off your perch very quickly, and you'll be knocked forever the higher up, the brighter you are. So major new constitutional theory, the constitutional blind spot and the weakening of constitutional democracy. I'm pleased to announce the forthcoming publication of a major new paper, in my opinion, the constitutional blind spot and the weakening of constitutional democracy. Procedural reframing, I've talked about that, doctrinal layering, hidden conflicts of interest, and undue political deference in time-sensitive constitutional challenges. This is one of the most substantial and intellectually demanding pieces of work I have undertaken. It extends to more than 170 pages across 17 sections and builds upon my earlier research on constitutional coherence, constitutional maintenance, constitutional continuity, access to justice, and procedural reframing. The paper brings together these ideas with a more integrated constitutional framework. Now, this took me months and months and months to get this level of integration and this level of sequencing and this level of clarity. And you have to have clarity before you can get, but sequencing, clarity, those kind of things go together, and integration then comes from clarity and sequencing. So the central question is a simple but important one. How can a serious constitutional challenge be formally capable of being brought before the courts, yet never meaningfully determined, while an effective remedy remains available? Now, I didn't even know what a remedy meant in the balance of convenience or doctrines or anything like that. I didn't know what that meant, a year ago, and now here am I, and I've, learned it, opened the books, learned it, looked up what does this mean, what does this mean, what does this mean, think about it, think, very, very deeply. So a challenge may be regarded, well, I'm always interested in a challenge, but there's challenges and there's challenges. So a challenge may be regarded as too early before every mathematical problem is a challenge, but this challenge, even to do this work, was unbelievable. The challenge was, it was astonishingly challenging and difficult and amazing. But I think this is an amazing work. A challenge may be regarded as too early before the relevant event, too political or disruptive while the event is unfolding, and too late once constitutional or institutional finality has been reached. The paper argues that the cumulative sequence may create what I describe as a constitutional blind spot. Now, I suppose only that I studied calculus and sequences, in mathematics, I would never have been able to understand the constitutional blind spot. Only that I could look at something in a sequential way. And study sequences, and also I had done cluster analysis, and I studied a cluster of constitutional cases, and I could see patterns across that cluster, which led me to further deepening some of these ideas and so on. So there was a lot of things that happened. I attended particular cases, and I could see words that were said and phrases that were used, and looked at judgments and things like that. And everything sort of, after months and months and months, all kind of came together. So now I have this phenomenal piece of work, I think. This paper examines how procedural reframing, doctrinal layering, delay, interim relief, the balance of convenience, that's my favourite, costs, that's not my favourite, political deference, it depends on where they go, I suppose, institutional loyalties, conflicts of interest, and that's a huge thing. And I have to say, one of the High Court judges made a huge issue out of that, and I have to admire that High Court judge. I won't mention his name now, but that was the one thing he wouldn't let go. And I have to say he is one of the most honest judges in the Irish High Courts, but I won't mention his name. So the paper examines how procedural reframing, doctrinal layering, and smartest, delay, interim relief, the balance of convenience, costs, political deference, institutional loyalties, conflicts of interest, and constitutional finality may interact over time. Each individual decision may appear defensible when viewed in isolation, while their combined effect may prevent meaningful constitutional review. Now, I'm getting quite a lot of feedback from academia, Dr. you on this already, from people who are reading this work and are saying, could it be extended or developed in other areas other than constitutional law? Now this is really killed me to do this work, so I find I really can't do any more development of this work at the moment. It's been a hugely challenging piece of work. So it also develops the idea of a working constitution, a constitution that would work not only for institutions but also for citizens and challengers, to genuinely independent adjudication and within constitutional time. Artificial intelligence assisted me in locating information, testing structures, and refining language more efficiently. However, the central intellectual work remained deeply human: prolonged reading, reflection, conceptual development, critical judgment, restructuring, and repeated revision. I mean, the edits and edits and edits and edits ad infinitum, but that is to reduce and get the clarity. So the editing and the editing and the narrowing down and trying to get the sequence correct, all of that. And I think even last night I thought of conflict of interest. I have to bring this conflict. I have to look at it. I have to look at conflict of interest several different ways, and I brought that in at the end. So AI did not make this project easy. It enabled faster access to information, but the depth, concentration, and intellectual labour required remained exceptional. This also raises wider questions about whether advances in it will simply lead academics and researchers to be expected to work faster, produce more, and sustain increasingly demanding workloads. So I learned that out of it, and I think we need to be careful about it. So the paper was completed without grant funding or conventional editorial support. I am therefore grateful to everyone, both visible and invisible, whose knowledge, labour and technical contribution helped make this work possible. This includes the many workers whose often unrecognised labour supports the development and operation of artificial intelligence, and I have written a paper about that. It's shocking, absolutely shocking, but the world we live in, so we're going to have to change. So by any reasonable academic standard, a paper of more than 170 pages and 17 sections represents a major body of work. Its importance, however, will not ultimately depend on its length. Of course, it will depend on whether the framework helps courts, scholars, institutions and citizens understand how constitutional review can gradually and quietly become ineffective. Now, I've already got very good feedback about this work, so I'm delighted with the feedback I've got, and it's in a very short time. So I expect this paper will have a major contribution to constitutional law in due course. The paper is now available on academia.edu and ResearchGate, and its central proposition is simply this: the Constitution must work for the challenger to independent institutions and within constitutional time. So that's a major piece of work that I've just finished, and it's a accumulation of a lot of research that I've done, working night and day like Dolly Parton, that same sort of thing, for months and months and months. And I'm delighted that it's now completed. And anybody who wants to look at it can look at my profile on academia.eu or ResearchGate. And I'm someone that has faced considerable adversity in my life. And I suppose if you're a star, as a female, you'll have to face a lot of knocking, and perhaps a thick skin would have helped me greatly deal with all the knocking that I've faced. But I think all those knockers will never in a million years achieve what I've achieved. Not one of them, because if you're the type of people that knocked people all the time, there's only one place you'll never end up, and that's at the top of anywhere. You'll always be number two. You will never be number one if you're a knocker. You won't, because you won't be there too long. Because people who knock people and knock them continuously, should be brought to account. And we have to ask the question: why are people who knock people continuously? How are they in very senior positions, and how do they get away with it? And why are they allowed to remain in these positions if there are people who knock people for a living? And they're everywhere, and particularly knock women. The way women are treated, in my opinion, and I have had women ringing me in desperation about the way they're treated in the workplace, the way they're treated by certain organisations in Ireland and other places, and it's shocking in the extreme the way women are treated. So I hope this work is going to show that women can achieve excellence in any area they put their minds to, and that this will inspire others to follow my footsteps. And I'm so pleased that I'm now 2%. I was 0.51%, as I suppose, on academia.eu for global, and they have 300 million people on that platform, and that is where I now am in terms of the global reach of my work. And a lot of it is about abuse, power dynamics, abuse of power right across the board, in families, in the home, in the workplace, in communities, in society, everywhere, institutions, the abuse that's in oversight, that's in legislation, the gaslighting in legislation, everything. It's shocking, the amount of abuse, and the way women are treated is absolutely shocking. So I've come out and I've written several papers of the abuse of women, and I know all about it. I can guarantee you there's nobody that knows more about abuse than I do. But I have written papers that I hope will help women, younger than me, will help them understand the type of dynamics and the type of behaviours that can cause them harm, in the long term. And I've written a lot of policy papers about how perhaps we need a new system of dispute resolution to help reduce the horrific harm that's caused to others in the world, because usually harm occurs as a result of a dispute or about something or other. And when disputes become entrenched, as I've said earlier, the situation can be very, very serious. But an abuse is often connected to an imbalance of power or power dynamics and an imbalance of power. So I have experienced huge adversity, but I've come out now with one of the best papers that I could have possibly ever written in my life. And it is as a result of all that knocking, and here I am at the very top, from the bottom to the top. And those knockers, deserve what they get, because they'll never in a million years ever reach what I've done, in spite of what they did to me.